Subscribe to the Mystic Vibrations Shock of the Hour program today and never miss another episode. The Shock of the Hour is a Radio Anu exclusive program produced every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. By now, I am sure that you are aware that all our programs are packed with information, inspiration, mystic vibrations, as well as hot button topics. Every evening we enter into a different dimension, even if it is a part 2 of the previous program, whether it's history or mystery, biology or philosophy, domestic affairs or the locks of your hair. The mystic vibration is sure to bring something new and interesting to the table every evening. So never miss another episode again. Subscribe to the Shock of the Hour now. And don't forget your key Swahili word of the day and your daily scientific fact. So, to subscribe, give us an email, priestisaac27@gmail.com, or call or WhatsApp us today. Area code 1268-728-3162. The Shock of the Hour. Never miss another program. And a special note to all our new subscribers. All our new subscribers will receive a special copy of the DVD documentary, full length, The Night of the Black Tiger, The Divinity of Marcus Messiah God.
A dozen, 2 dozen, 3 dozens of Brother Kademi and Brother Paddy Simon, who knows and can articulate without a score or a note the history for the last 100 years of this country. And that our education system does not see the importance, the urgency of recruiting, of hiring, of contracting these brothers to impart, to teach the younger generation that are so adrift of who they are. And I want to begin in a strange way to address this topic. I would say to you, Brother Kademi, I've delivered many, many lectures, many parts of the world, and I've lost count. But there was something about this topic that up to driving here, I couldn't decide. I did all kinds of things. This morning was up to 3 o'clock. Pride of our nation, of our land. I found it rather provocative, different, and made me question myself too. What is this pride that we are speaking about? I want to suggest from the onset, and I want to be as concise as I can be, that a nation and a people that are not truly aware of their history and their place in the earth are people drifting in the ocean of uncertainty. I want to say that one of the reasons why the Caribbean, and I would say by extension Africa, present-day Africa, because it is my forte and my interest, geopolitics, follow the world and events. And I believe it's the failure and failing, particular of the ancestral children, of not being educated, informed, and enlightened of their place in history. Why we are in the position and condition that we're in. So that I will ask the question, pride of our island, is it provocatively being asked, or to suggest when Brother Kademi chose the topic, that he is mischievously asking if we have pride, or what is the pride, or where is the pride. I am not certain, and that's why it gave and gives me great challenge. I want to start this way, because I am very disappointed in a country that is celebrating 37, or has in fact celebrated 37 years of independence. And if you trace from Trinidad down, I think we would have had a maximum years of 30 or 50 years of independence. And when you look at our condition today, with at least 3 universities, when you look at the academics that we produce, and you look at our condition and the position of the ancestral children, those whose parents shed blood, sweat, and tears, whose blood, sweat, and tears have nurtured these soils, as the Griot would often say, from Freetown to Five Island, from Cedar Grove to Old Road. Almost every area that you would see land, except for rocks or hillside that is would not be able to fertilize or germinate any agricultural production, be it cotton, tobacco, cane. There were in fact plantations. And wherever there were plantations, there were black souls. How do you explain that we have at least 3 internationally reputed universities in the West Indies, and accompanying those, perhaps for the last 70 years, some of the finest minds? In fact, we have produced per capita the most Nobel laureates in the world. 3. I think there might be only one other country with a smaller population that produced 1. But on a per capita basis, the Caribbean has produced the most Nobel laureate. Sir Arthur Lewis, Sir Derek Walcott, and I think William Naipaul. So we have this brilliance, we have this academic brilliance, we have universities, and we have countless number of doctorates. Yet in 2018, if we were to do a random survey from our primary school to a secondary school and ask the simplest question about who they are, from whence they came, or anything about their origin as a people, I think you'll be very frightened. In an era when information is at your fingertip, in the palm of your hand. Yes, there's some of it you have to know how to decode and to analyze, because there are in fact a lot of disinformation. But how do you explain? You have a curricula, you have academic results, 22 subjects in 21 and 20. Yet these same brilliant students of mine, of ours, including the teachers, including the administrators, are completely ignorant of their civilization and their people. In a period in which information is at your fingertips. And I want to suggest to you that we cannot speak of pride if you are ignorant of your history and who you are. You cannot speak of modernity. You cannot speak of independence if you do not know who you are. Because there is a correlation, there's a connection between independence and pride and consciousness of who you are. Independence, 37 years, is irrelevant and inconsequential, unimportant, if there is no link of independence and who you are. Because independence is only requisite because of a transition. If you were free, if you were liberated, if you were never enslaved, if you were never in bondage, if you were never in barbarism, if you never went through the journey of the middle passage of hell, and you became victims on a plantation for 3 centuries, experiencing the worst atrocity of man's inhumanity to man, and then you go through some period that the economic changes of the world had forced the planters to recognize that it was more economical to free the slaves, because the economic responsibility of food, shelter, and clothing would not have been theirs, or was not theirs, after the emancipation. But they still controlled the economy. It was a plantation and sugar economy. You had to work, so you had to provide your own shelter, if you've been emancipated, your own food, your own clothing. So it was mainly for economic reasons, when they recognized that it was cheaper to have some abolition, masking or charade of emancipation, but you had to work for massa. But when you get to that stage and you have this so-called emancipation, and then you move on to adult suffrage in 1951, some teething stage, making blacks, and I hear black educators and black history teachers advocating ad nauseum the foolishness, giving the impression that supporting the Eurocentric miseducation and misinformation, that you're really barbarians, you're primitive people, come from a backward civilization, some backward planet, and that you only, or they only began experiencing civility when the missionaries began to indoctrinate them with Christianity. And that lie has not only been perpetuated during slavery, but as we speak today, the educators are still perpetuating it. So you ask this, I have to ask myself the question, when Brother Kademi asked me to speak on the pride of our island, what is it that he's asking me to speak about? Because you have to first know who you are. Pridefulness, or prideful of what? You must be proud of something first. What are you proud of? That you were a slave and they let you go without reparation? Pride that you live in a country that you have black leadership that has kept the population divided and polarized because of the constitution that were imposed upon them? Pride that the population is more divided and polarized now in 2018, 37 years after independence, 40 years in whichever island, and 50 years in whatever country that we exist in the archipelago. Pride of not knowing your history and who you are. Pride that you'd have gone to a primary school, a secondary school, done your GCE and your CXC, and you still don't have a clue. You can't have pride in that situation. You cannot. So that, Brother Kademi, I think you intended was to be provocative in asking me to address the subject of pride in our island. I want to introduce myself this way, to develop the point and create a nexus, and then leave the podium for you to ask him the questions. I am suggesting that more than 80% of our population, and don't talk about those who would have already gone to Valhalla or gone to meet the ancestral spirit, who would have gotten their early dirt nap, that day, most of them would have had no knowledge of who they are. born as children, nurtured in a colonial system of miseducation, misinformation, not having the privilege of technology, of today internet and Google and so forth. Most of our grandparents gone in spirit, not knowing who they are, having doubt, having felt or made to believe that they were savage people and the missionaries contribute for their civility, not knowing that genetically, mitochondrially, anthropologically, paleontologically, that Africa, the African to the black man, is the mother and father of civilization, irrefutable by scientific and mitochondrial evidence. Let me go over that again. I think, and Brother Academy would help me with it, I think in the evolutionary process of man, we're not discussing evolution and creation. I'm making a archaeological and anthropological point, which is fact. I think it's about 2.4 million years ago that Homo habilis, the preceding creatures of modern man, were in existence on this great mass of land, the supercontinent of Africa. Well, when what's the name? It slips me. The great mass of the African diaspora.
Nigeria? No. Warland?
Yes. And then we moved to 1.8 million, I think it is, where we got to the period of the more modern people. Again, all of that originates in what they call today Africa, before the geological movement and the ice age that split the continent up, and Arabia and Australia all were on one mass of land. But all the scientific, most advanced scientific evidence by predominantly white scientists have accepted with irrefutable evidence that modern man, from 114 was the Homo erectus, and then we move to modern man, I think is about 300,000 years with Homo sapiens.
Homo sapiens sapiens. We are Homo sapiens. Homo sapiens sapiens. That's what we are today.
Emerged genetically. The mother is in Africa. Everybody else came. They all in migratory process. Yet, these people who were being shipped in this hull and brought to these Brazil and all the different places for economic reasons, with our governments and our universities, are today still leaving people believing that their civility began in this new world. I want to say that we can't speak of pride, but and we do not have in perspective that we are the mother and father of civilization and modernity and science and maths and everything else we gave the world. So give me a chance to see if I can introduce Plato in dialogue. And Plato is one of the celebrated philosophers of Western civilization, in that they have falsely and dishonestly given the Greeks the credit of being the foundation of modern knowledge and mathematics and science and calculus and Pythagoras and all the others. But here is Plato in Laws. He says, let me first go to Herodotus, the father, they say, of Greek history. He's being credited as Herodotus as the father of Greek history. And what did he say? He said the names of nearly all the gods came to Greece from Egypt. Remember, it's not Brother Academy, high priest, who is saying this, because we are prejudiced, we've been influenced in our education and thought to feel that anything the griot says is incorrect as accurate as it is, or Brother Kademi. So let me go back to bring to the podium or to the stands in the court to give his own evidence. Herodotus, the father of Greek history, the philosophers or the nation that they had given falsely the credit of being the shapers of modern knowledge, modern intellectualism. Inaccurate. But here is Herodotus, the father of the Greek philosophers, which is fast falsely given. You say pride in our lands. And here is Herodotus speaking or writing, and I quote him verbatim. The names of nearly all the gods came to Greece from Egypt. I know from the inquiries I have made that they came from abroad. And it seems most likely that it was from Egypt. For the names of all of the gods have been known in Egypt from the beginning of time. Let me bring Socrates to the stands to speak. Socrates too is one of the philosophers who the Western world and the universities give credit to. And I would say that if we, having failed to teach our children these things, we speak about pride in our land. You cannot be speaking of pride when you did not from preschool. Let the children know that Africa was the cradle or is the cradle of civilization. And from Africa, all other people came. All other people emerged. Be the Caucasian, the Mongolians, everybody else. But why we fail to do that? You know, we design our own curriculum. 37 years of independence. Some of the most distinguished universities. Some of the greatest scholars came out of our universities. Yet this is not a compulsory subject to educate the young ones of who they are. How can you justify that? How do you explain that? How can you speak of pride? What pride are you speaking about? Eurocentric pride? The people who we taught? Well, here is Socrates, again one of the most renowned of the philosophers of Greek philosophy and mythology. But philosophy. And I quote him verbatim. Not me, not Brother Kademi, not Brother Paddy Simon. Socrates in his own words. I, meaning Socrates, not Alister, not Brother Kademi, studied philosophy and medicine in Egypt. I will fast forward and make something, see if I can create a nexus to the present time. Everybody is celebrating there, those who are not dealing with the ham and the turkey, dealing with the birth of Christ. And I found it very strange, being a person who brought up in the Methodist Church and was a #1 candidate to study theology, but chose geopolitics and world events. Found it difficult to understand how none of my black preachers, and if I missed it, and I hardly missed service at the time, never connected the principle of Christianity to Africa. So I spoke of Herodotus, spoke of Socrates. I'm now going to Jesus. There would have been no Christianity had it not been for Africa and Africans. Let me repeat that. And I dare anybody here in Vatican to challenge me. There would have been no Christianity, no celebration of, well, yes, this is the early part, his birth. But his life would not have been celebrated, and Easter more in particular, and after, more so his crucifixion. Because it was Africa and Africans that saved his life. Please go with me. That is, Christianity only exists because Africans' hospitality and generosity and humanity. In that when King Herod made a decree that every firstborn male 2 years and under must be killed. Am I right, those who follow the Christian doctrine? Am I right? Am I making that up? I didn't hear anyone. Did in the Bible of Matthew, I think it is, did Herod the king, hearing about this Messiah being born in his territory, in his country, and he sent out to find him, and he couldn't find him, he made a decree. I didn't make that up. Read your Bible, you know it. And say to his soldiers, find him. And when they couldn't find him, so okay, they're hiding him. Let me solve the problem. Every male child under 2, kill them. And they killed all of them. Not maybe, they killed all. Now if Jesus were killed as the other firstborn, would there be Christianity? I didn't hear you. If Jesus was killed as all the other firstborn were killed, all were massacred, would Christianity exist? There would be no resurrection. But why no black preacher? Why no church? Even on Easter, say anything about that. Because his stepfather was being dreamt. Am I right? Pride in our land. Coming to that, I'm concluding on that. Creating a nexus. You may ask why I'm going there. I'm coming here. And said to his father, his stepfather, Joseph, please take him out of this land, because if you don't take him out, Herod decree, he's not going to escape, they're going to kill him. And what he did, said to the mother, I got this dream, and I would say from the African angels, dreamt him, take him, bring him home to us. Where did he go? Who welcomed him? Where did they go for rescue? Where did they go as migrants? Who gave them hospitality? Who accommodated them? Where were they accommodated? I don't hear you. Where were Jesus and Joseph and Mary were accommodated? Where?
Egypt.
And where is Egypt? A state of Africa. The same state that taught every single Greek, including Thales, the first Greek philosopher. The Greek that they have given falsely the credit for Western knowledge. Thales was the first Greek that went to study in Egypt, in Africa, in Kemet, for 20 years. Imagine you're doing a PhD for 20 years. Pythagoras, all of them. In that Pythagoras learned the Pythagorean theory in Egypt. He went for 13 years. Don't laugh, go do the research. Do the research. And then he went back with the mathematic knowledge. But the evidence is there, the pyramid of Sphinx. Preceded them. Thales, the first one, 20 years he went to study. Anybody go to study 20 years anywhere now? You say they're done? You get 5 PhD. Do doctorate in what, 10 years or 6 years, Brother Paddy? 7. So I'm coming back to the nexus. That even Jesus Christ, the great celebration of Christianity, only became a reality because the African, the mother and father of civilization, decided to send a message, bring him here. Because if you leave him in that land, he would be killed and massacred like all the others. And if he did, there'd be no resurrect, death, crucifixion, because he would have already been killed at the age of 2. And the significance of humanity is because he lived. He could raise dead and make dead blind see and so forth. And then he was crucified. But if he was killed at 2, there will be no crucifixion, there will be no resurrection, and there will be no Christianity. So it's because of the Africans, the Egyptians, the Comitians that welcomed him. And you know something strange? I'm not being blasphemous, I'm being factual. That's why I couldn't go and study theology. I was not good enough for it. How come every aspect of Jesus' life before his birth is being recorded between Matthew and Revelation? When he born, who went to visit him? What a gift they carried? Frankincense and myrrh. So, raised dead, he made blind see, fishermen, nearly everything. 4 of them. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and did scribe, historian, writing, following him. Some duplicating what the story. Go to a party, go someplace, and hill, recording everything. Up in some hill, some devil come or somebody record it. Go to some wedding, food for, run out, record it. You think there was a period of Jesus' life that was unimportant, that forced Christ would refuse to record it? Let me go over it again. Before he was born, he was to come. When he came, they said not only where he was and what place he was kept in, some manger, in some stable. All that recorded, detailed. And the holy men came. They didn't just say they brought gifts, like gold, frankincense, myrrh. But he was being rescued and saved. Must have had friends and teachers. Remember we teaching long before that, you know, teaching. Life began in Africa, create the nexus. That's why they don't teach that in primary school. How come between Matthew and Revelation, there's absolutely no record of his living in Egypt, in Africa? How come there's nothing at all important take place for them years? Let's say try to play games with the numbers and say 3 years. All right, take 3 years. You know, 11, but take 3. So for that 3 years, everything is inconsequential. Nothing was significant that Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John recorded. But before he had this and up to resurrection, and what happened to the stone when he come out, when he on the cross, who provoked him, who jeering him, the last words he said, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? Bow your head and die, God pity God. But the only time, nothing, nada, about his existence in Egypt, the Africans who saved him, that allowed the world to have Christianity. Nothing at all important took place in Africa and Egypt in Jesus' life. Nothing at all. So that I want to create this nexus of education, of saying, and history. When we would have taught the Greeks that they have accredited with Western knowledge, and we have not been able to teach our children that from preschool, primary school, secondary school, and see not even in university, some special, except for special studies. Pride. I want to suggest to you, if from preschool, if at least from primary school, we were making those children know that one, modern man, science, mathematics, astrology, astronomy, forensic, all began and established in Africa. It's there. Up to today, the leading scientists, all the leading scientists in paleontology are in Egypt, still looking at mummies and using the latest technology, how they did this. Not only how they build, the advanced knowledge of the pyramid and the Sphinx, but how they were able to preserve for 4,000 years. When I was little, I thought mommy was some kind of tomfool. I didn't know this human being being preserved scientifically. I didn't know that. Even when I watched the movies, they being mummies, I thought it was some. Because they placed the information in such a way not to let you know, look how advanced the Africans were that nobody preserved. That's science, that technology. That is still leading scientists, Japan, all of them, hundreds in Egypt, going through this and how they did it, using the latest technology. That today, they can't even preserve the bodies as long as the Egyptian had the knowledge. And then they gave Imhotep. They gave Hippocrates. Again, like they gave the other philosophers who were our students to our teachers in Africa. The credit of Pythagoras' theory and philosophy here. Hopet and so philosophers before them. But in Hopet, 3,000 years before Hippocrates, had diagnosed over 200 diseases and ailments and performed operation 3,000 years before Hippocrates, who they falsely accredit as father of medicine. On the kidney, on the eyes, on the tongue, on the heart, in hope that 3,000 years for performing and diagnosing over 200 different ailments and diseases. Why is it our children are not taught about? I want to suggest to you, as we move to an era in which I will leave Paddy to develop, I understand why we don't have the pride. Because if you don't know your history, if you refuse to talk of your great history, that you are the mother and father of civilization, and that from you all the greatness came. And then you ask yourself, why these children are so indifferent? Why they're so cold? I say the pride of our nation is lacking because we have failed them historically to tell them the truth about ourselves. The pride that we should have of who we are, of our contribution to modernity, to civilization, is unapologetic. It's inexcusable that we, I'm not blaming anybody now, we have had government, we have had the ministries, we have had the universities. Who to blame? Nobody to blame. Why is it that African and black history is not compulsory subjects? Why is it that it's in you're a big man, big woman, now you're looking on the internet or something, you're finding out history? Why those children had to go to school or still going to school and not being taught? The origin make them believe that, you know, it's after you got freed on the plantation and the Catholic and the Methodist and the Anglican missionaries come. African, the missionaries from Anglican and the Methodist and all of those. They're not even great-grandchildren when we're teaching spirituality and theology and mathematics. I want to close this way about the pride. Pride in our land. And then to compound it, I think we have produced in the Caribbean a set of politicians who are responsible for almost every aspect of our lives. They're responsible for the health, Ministry of Health, responsible for the road, responsible what kind of health system you have, what type of education system, what school get funded, what kind of funding for the social services, for the health services, for the, name it, transportation. And if we have men and women who are not aware of who they are, who feel that it is a smart, it's been hanky-panky to get along and not on the foundation of modernity, you will have difficulty to ever appreciating or understanding pride, let alone to be making it an integral part of our life. I am convinced that if we are taught our true history from preschool, a lot of the deviant behavior of our children that we are complaining about, the value system of those children would have been much different.
Definitely.
Let me say that again. 80% of the social problems of our children today that we're experiencing in school, the violence, the turning on each other, disrespecting the mother, this and that, don't care about school, want to go back, stay by men and so forth. That I am convinced we would not have had 80% of that problem if our curriculum had taught the true history about who we are, our place in the world, and that our goals and objective of the young people would have been much different. There'll be more focus, there'll be more discipline. And their pride would have to be taught to them. Because in their history of who they are and their place in the world would have been integral to their psyche. So that pride in our land, Brother Kadeni, for me is not pride of environment. Because when we had environment and when we had the cities in Mali and so forth, and hygiene and sanitation, we gave the world those things. Some people or other places, some modernity had it. So to give the impression that we not need to be taught about how to keep the gutter clean and pride. But when we cannot even recognize our history and we cannot celebrate who we are, our origin, and our contribution to humanity and civilization, we would have already undermined our pride. And when we cannot do that, and worse, in modern times, we make sure because of our body politics, it being adversarial, tearing down, ragging down, and we can't give deference to people who would have made significant contribution, that we can't celebrate two freed slaves introducing education to the Caribbean, Anne and Elizabeth, sisters, Elizabeth Twaits and Anne Gilbert, pioneering education, well, the Western education. We can't celebrate that. And people ask me, well, why we don't celebrate these two people who introduced more or less literary writing in this part of the world? I said, but if they fail to acknowledge who they are and celebrate who they are, and to teach it in the curriculum, put it in the curriculum, if they ignore their greatness, how can they celebrate the heroes of Sir Viv Richards and the George Weston and the Maguires and King Court? How can they? You look at it. We had the last Heroes Day, am I right, Paddy? And I remember somebody was on the radio program. I think it was Darren, one of the radio guys, in the morning. And somebody called in and said, something Happy Heroes Day. He said, happy what? He said, just a minute. And about 5 minutes after he came back, he said, yes, today's Heroes Day. Heroes, men and women who would have shaped this country. From King Court to Dame Nellie Robertson, who provided the first secondary education. 13, she went to the States, came back, saw the condition, the brother established the first free education, secondary education, without any class structure, because to go to grammar school, and Paddy will tell you about that, go to grammar school and high school, you have to have certain money, certain properties. But we don't celebrate her, we forget her. We was just past his night, like nothing happened. But I'm not surprised. We can't celebrate, we can't have pride in those people because we don't have pride in who we are and our greatness. If we did, these people would deify them. We deify Sir Vivian Richards, V.C. Bird. Pride is not in the environment. Pride is in our history. Pride is in our spirituality. Pride is in the mother and father of civilization. Pride in our land can only be virtuous and have value when we begin to give acknowledgement of the contribution that we have made to the world and what we have done for modernity. And without us, there will be no them. I want to say thanks and have a good night.
Just give thanks to Brother Alister Thomas. Let us give him a warm thank you again, please. And well, actually, it wasn't necessarily a subject area that was supposed to be provocative. Maybe thought provocative to some degree, maybe. But you know, that is why the pride of our land was the subject area, because as I told you, it is something that you could play with and carry to, you know, different levels, different dimensions, and you did just that. That's why it's not pride of our island, because it could be about our island, but describing Africa is our land again, and still our nation, and the connection. You also gave some solutions. You know, when you mentioned the whole aspect of introducing into our curriculum who we really are, is really a criminal act, it's a sin. You know, it's obvious this educational system that was set up by the Rockefellers clearly showing you that there's no space whatsoever for us knowing ourselves. So thanks, my good brother, for such information and such inspiration again. Now, even before we bring on the good brother Paddy Simon, I was asked to allow the good brother Frank De Freitas to introduce the grill. Before you get up, my brother, I think it would be really remiss of me not to say anything at all about the grill. I mean, this is the grill, you know. There's certain things about my own father, you know me, and that Brother Paddy Simon has brought back to my attention, or he brought to my attention, I should say. You know, and I don't think we could find a better term than the griot for Brother Paddy Simon. When you understand what a griot really is, you know, an individual who has kept the information, the knowledge, the history as such, not on written records. And when he expresses it, because in Senegal and Mali and these different places, sometimes the griot does it in poetry, sometimes the griot does it in songs, sometimes he does it in dance. You know, when you hear our griot express himself, he never left the raw back behind tar. So it's all a part of the science, you know. So, Brother Frank, I'm going to leave the podium to you, and let us welcome Brother Frank De Freitas.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is my distinct pleasure to be here this evening, not only in the capacity to introduce Mr. Paddy Simon, but to learn in a forum such as this. It really bothers me that in Antigua and Barbuda, that this room is not full tonight with people to get this information that is out there. But
subscribe to the Mystic Vibrations Shock of the Hour program today and never miss another episode. The Shock of the Hour is a Radio Anu exclusive program produced every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. By now, I am sure that you are aware that all our programs are packed with information, inspiration, mystic vibrations, as well as hot button topics. Every evening we enter into a different dimension, even if it is a part 2 of the previous program, whether it's history or mystery, biology or philosophy, domestic affairs or the locks of your hair. The mystic vibration is sure to bring something new and interesting to the table every evening. So never miss another episode again. Subscribe to the Shock of the Hour now. And don't forget your key Swahili word of the day and your daily scientific fact. So, to subscribe, give us an email, priestisaac27@gmail.com, or call or WhatsApp us today. Area code 1268-728-3162. The Shock of the Hour. Never miss another program. And a special note to all our new subscribers. All our new subscribers will receive a special copy of the DVD documentary, full length, The Night of the Black Tiger, The Divinity of Marcus Messiah.